evening. Welcome to July 10th Ways and Means meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. I want to introduce our new recording secretary. Dana has joined us. We want to thank Joellen for her years of helping us out and keeping track of the minutes. But it's good to see fresh face. We're still short a few committee members, but we have a quorum, so let's press on. I think that we have one opening, so if anybody's interested, let the moderator know. Next on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? No? All right, first order of real business is to re-elect a chair and vice chair. So are there any nominations?
Re-elect.
The fix is in.
The fix is in.
Yes, Steve.
I'll make a motion to nominate Roger Riggs as chairperson.
Second.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
No, but I will nominate Vice Chairman Moran for re-election.
Let's do one at a time, Phil.
One at a time. Okay.
All right, all in favor of Roger Riggs for chair? 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, any opposed, abstaining? 8-0-0. Phil's nomination for vice chair.
Vice chair.
Steve
Second.
Moran, and a second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any opposed, abstaining? 8-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So every year, at the end of the year, we end up with a few budgets that are either a little bit short or a little bit long so this is a little balancing transfers act that gets done thanks to the accounting department. Whitney, do you want to show us what's on this list and tell us of anything that's unusual about it? Did everybody get a copy of this from and to page? I think so. We're good.
So what you have in front of you is virtually identical to what you're used to seeing as the backup at town meeting for what we call the omnibus article. The reason that we're doing it this way this year instead is basically because we can now. There's a relatively new provision in the law that gives us a brief window at the end of the fiscal year to make these corrections. So instead of trying to estimate in early May how the next month and a half of the fiscal year is going to shake out and potentially over or underestimate, we're doing it now to,
Sorry, can you turn the microphone around?
Sorry.
Phil, you want to check the phone? Is that VCAT calling?
That's not me. Who's this? Okay. Hello? Yeah, we just fixed it. Is that what
All
it
right.
is? Yeah.
I have to start over.
No, that's okay. I apologize.
It's good.
So, VCAT, we're live on VCAT, so they appreciate having clear speaking into the microphones.
Okay, so, as I said, it's difficult to estimate in early May how this is all gonna shake out, so we're taking advantage of this opportunity, to use that new provision in the law to make these corrections now. As you can see, we're dealing with a relatively small amount of transfers and a relatively small total amount in comparison to the total budget. And I think that's a real testament to our budget process and our departments for monitoring their budgets and making sure everything comes out well. With that, I can answer any specific questions. I don't know if you want to go through line by line or give people a chance to look at them and see if they have any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Steve?
You have a question?
I was going to ask about the debt service, the $8,355. How did we accumulate that additional interest?
I'm sorry, how did we what?
Accumulate that additional interest.
It's not that we accumulated additional interest, it's that when we budget for it at the beginning of the year, it's based on estimates at the time and rates at the time and all that, and it just came out a little bit differently this year. So it's not from an additional project or something, it's just
It was just a difference in calculation.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the biggest items there is probably the fire station. Has that been fully, is that still on bands, the bond anticipation notes? John's nodding his head.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, any other questions or a motion to approve?
I move to approve the entire line item. It's relatively small money, all the line items, rather than individually.
Yeah, just vote the whole thing.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Opposed, abstaining, 800. Next item is the request for reserve fund transfer for the park and recreation mower. Brendan, can you fill us in on, I mailed around the packet that you sent, so people would probably have seen the background, but maybe you can fill us and the people on at home of what happened and what we are proposing.
Thank you. Brendan Egan, Director of Parks and Recreation. At the end of May, our mower, our current Jacobson 9016 mower was traveling up Glen Ave, lost power as it went to turn on to Edgemere Ave. The operator tried to restart. It started to roll backwards. The brakes were not working. As it rolled down the hill and picked up speed, the operator made a decision to turn it into a front yard at 7 Glen Ave and sideswiped a tree, breaking the axle, and we later determined the frame was bent and causing approximately $28,000 or $29,000 in damage. The operator is fine. We missed a few days of work, but we're very lucky that the operator was fine in that there was no pedestrians or anything else hit that would cause bodily damage or death. So we're very happy with that. In June, we had a technician from the Jacobson rep company, MTE, that's their regional rep in this area, came out and did an initial investigation of the machine and estimate. And they determined at that point, without putting it on a lift, it was about $15,000 in damage. We then had it sent to the dealership for a complete, put it up on the lift, look at the frame, see if it's bent, and that's where the repair cost went up to $29,000. Today, I received in the mail from the insurance company that it was deemed totaled. So we are currently renting an 11-foot mower that's about 8 or 10 years old, about the same age as the machine that was damaged. We are paying $1,000 a week to rent that mower, which is, in our opinion, throwing money away. So the mower that was damaged is on the capital list to be replaced in 2024. We had pushed it back a couple years because we had put some money into it this past spring and winter, put about $3,000 into it just to fix some things that have been nagging problems, found fixes for them, and hoping to get a couple more years out of it. This was not our intent to be here tonight asking for a reserve fund transfer. A new mower off the state contract, same mower, just brand new, is $98,000, a little over $98,388, I believe. They have incentives now. There's $5,000 off of the state contracted price of $103,000 and change, so it brings it down to $98,000. We are coming for a reserve fund transfer now because we think throwing $1,000 a week away on a rental and waiting until fall town meeting is not prudent. There are current incentives, that $5,000 off, that end at the end of the month. They could change in August. They could offer something else. We also know that we could purchase this model and have it on hand probably in a week if approved for a reserve fund transfer. There will be a settlement from the insurance company, and we would request that we put that money towards this purchase as well. What that number is, we don't know right now. They're working on finalizing that figure, is what I was told today from the insurance company. They just found out today from their adjuster that it was deemed totaled, and that then come up with a figure, settlement figure.
All right, thanks. Doug, I'm sorry that I didn't go to the subcommittee first.
No problem.
I know you and Sonia met with the rec department to discuss the scope of things. Can you fill us in from?
Sure, we met, it was a couple of weeks ago, so we didn't yet know that the machine was totaled, though there was some thought that it would be because of they thought the frame was bent. And at that time, we talked about the options of waiting till September town meeting. We talked about the additional rent. There's another component, the 11-foot wide machine isn't keeping up, so it's costing a lot more man hours. It's taking a lot more time to do the same mowing, and they're having trouble just staying caught up with the mowing. The 11-foot has to be trailered around town, so you have additional time with loading it on the trailer, chaining it down, getting it secured, pulling it to the next place, taking it off. I do think they used it as an opportunity because Brendan did say that they considered purchasing an 11-foot, thinking that it might be better to be able to put it on the trailer and move it around. And this little experiment has showed that that's not a great idea compared to the bigger machine. So the machine that was damaged is a 16-foot cutting width. The machine they want to replace it with is a 16-foot. There's also, I believe, a little bit of money that we get rebated from the rental. If we purchase this machine at this time, they're going to rebate back half.
Half of whatever we paid in rental.
So a little bit more money back at that time. We talked about, we were a little concerned about the reserve fund transfer because it's the very beginning of the year and this is quite a big chunk of the money coming out of the reserve fund. But then through the administration, John, you can correct me, but I believe that because this was actually encumbered potentially in June, it can come out of last year's reserve fund. So it would be money that would not then go into free cash, but it can be money that we spend from the past fiscal year's reserve fund, and we start this year with this doesn't knock down our reserve fund at the very first month of the year. So that felt a little better also. Without that, I think we're very limited in funding sources because it would be past the budget. I mean, I think we'd be at raise and appropriate. Is that true? Or I guess you could ask for stabilization money if we waited till September. But I think the smarter thing, even if we waited till September, I think it would come from reserve fund and then it would be next year's because we couldn't hold it. We can't hold it that long, right? Yeah, so we can't use last year's money if we wait till September to vote for this, even if we ask town meeting to approve it. So it seemed like a smarter way to go also, just to deal with the money.
All right, makes sense. Phil?
With the insurance check then would go to?
I think it would end up back in free cash.
Back to free cash.
Yeah.
And how old was this mower?
This mower was, it was a 2009, I think we purchased it in probably July of 2008. So, you know how they come out a year
Appreciate
later.
it.
So it was about 10 to 11 years old.
So we're looking at probably a $20,000 settlement?
I-
10-year-old mower?
Yeah, I don't want to guess,
Yeah.
especially live on BCAT,
Right.
what that
Well,
would
we're
be.
not getting 100,000 back.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we would be putting that towards a new mower as well, towards the new mower as well.
David?
So how does that work? Maybe, John, if we have to approve an amount for this amount. It's 100,000, we don't know what the insurance amount is.
Right, so that's what our recommendation was, to approve the total amount of buying the new one.
Yep.
And then whatever we don't have to spend because of the rebate or the insurance money, we'll just close that. We'll transfer all of that. We won't spend what we don't need to, based on whatever we get back our insurance, and then the unspent money will close.
So uncertain what sort of time frame there is on the insurance check. How long do you have to close the books out?
So we will have it encumbered, so we have some time. We can wait, and that's, we expect we'll probably get, your original offer will be lower than we expect it to be and have to do some negotiating with that anyway. So that's why we're saying to approve the whole thing. If we have to pay for it from the appropriation with the whole amount, then we'll just close the insurance check.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think as usual, when you approve an appropriation, you have to approve the entire amount, even if some of the money is going to come from somewhere else.
Right, but we're doing this, and it's not in effect retroactive, but it's July, and we're talking about last year's budget season. So
Exactly.
money is being taken out of reserve fund.
Last year's
Money,
reserve
last year's reserve fund. That money would have gone into this year's free cash.
Yes.
We're limiting by using last year's money, we're keeping things off the warrant. We always spend from the warrant. So we're spending it using last year's money. This won't appear anywhere, except for last year.
Right, though it seems that we would have to spend either last year's money or this year's money. One way or another, we have to spend about this amount to replace the mower, right?
Right. This year, we're gonna replace it. We're gonna have to go through an exercise to replace this year's money. Last year, not.
Right.
So, again, from an appearance standpoint,
Right.
that's the only thing that I'm bringing up. I'm fine with it. I think this is the way to go. I want the flexibility, but again, it almost feels like we're doing something proactive.
From a transparency.
From a transparency standpoint, I want it known. We would normally replace our reserve fund in January, as we've done last year, with monies that we spent in there through free cash.
Yes, right.
So, but I'm fine with this.
Steve?
Just a quick question. What was the extent of damage to the property? Anything at all?
Some bark off of a tree. We're very lucky there, too.
Okay, thank you.
And we did a police report on it at the time, so, if the residents had any questions, there was a police report done.
Thank you.
John?
I assume you checked this, but just to be on the safe side, did you get climate control with this? Now it's an enclosed cab, it's gonna be awfully hot.
I think there's a small heater and a small AC unit.
Okay, so,
One of the benefits to that is they can cut, when you get those sudden rainstorms and they can continue to cut. They don't have to find shelter somewhere, as long as it's not a deluge, if you get those storms.
Just don't wanna melt any operators.
Correct, and can go out early in the fall. That's always a thing we hold back. When it gets cool in the morning, they can go out earlier in this unit.
And they can roll down the windows, right?
Correct.
That's the way you don't run the air conditioning, is you roll down the windows. All right, any other questions on this?
Just want to give you the total amount. We said 98,000. It's $98,339.39.
All right, for Whitney or John, the RFT that I have has an even $98,000. Do we need to adjust that number?
I guess we would put Brendan's number,
Okay,
that's where it's at.
all right. So just make sure I got this right, 98,339?
$98,339.39.
39 cents, okay. If there's nothing else, shall we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is that
Second.
a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, and opposed, abstaining, 800. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Kudos to
Okay.
your operator, who was it? Nice job. Yeah, he could have bailed and let it roll down the Wind Street.
All right.
Thank you.
So I've been aware that we have, that there's the annual accounting financial report has been out, and that the town's auditing subcommittee has worked through it. Susan is on the subcommittee, so I asked her if she could give a brief summary. I sent around a link to the report. They're on the town's accounting website, both the full financial report and the management letter to read. So you don't have to give us all the detail, but just a teaser so that people will want to go and read the document.
I'll just,
Thank you.
just gonna briefly talk about, mostly the management letter, but I will, the financial statements first. As you know, the town, of course, has a great, financial position when it comes to, free cash numbers have been, very solid for the last couple of years. The auditors, the risks that the auditors see really are, So that is really where I think we should probably look a little bit at the management line, not only was it else the material to the schools, but there's other comments on there that were new this year. There's a couple of copies of the management letter right there in front of Jaya, if anyone needs a copy. Those are this year's management letters. If you look on the town website under accounting, the management letters and financial statements have been posted there for the last probably 5 or 6 years now. So just about every year they do post these so that you can see them. I'm only going to point out one other thing in the actual financial statements. How about that? Okay. Hopefully they can hear me now.
Put it on?
I did.
Thank you.
Usually they're already on. On the actual financial statements themselves, which is very thick, the town actually won an award for these comprehensive annual financial report. It's a very thick and interesting report for those of us who might be interested in this kind of thing. But I do want to point out, if you ever do want to, especially next year when you're looking at your budgets for the ones that you're assigned to, if you wanted to go to page 67 on this year's, you can see your actual original budget, final budget, and the actual results and the variances for every single department. It starts on page 67 and runs a couple of pages. So sometimes this is interesting to look at. You know, we don't always see the very finals. When we're doing the next year's budget, we only have like a 6-month year-to-date actual. So this actually lets you look at the entire budget to actual department by department and broken down. So sometimes that's interesting to look at to see where we might have under or over estimated. Helps you budget for the following year, and I'm sure the accountants do that as well. So on the CAFR itself, in the very front is also, you might want to read the introductory section and the financial section. There's a nice summary there that the town management produces about our financial statements. And a lot of this, you see part of this at town meeting when Paul or John gives the summary. They usually talk about these things. But from a departmental point of view, I thought that back section might be helpful when you're looking at your own town budgets. And on page 51 is the whole pension liabilities all broken out, which we see when we look at the voting, when we vote on the appropriation every year for that. But what I'm going to turn to, if anyone has any questions, is the management letter. You'll see the management letter actually has 3 sections this year. Normally, you only have 2. The first one is the material weakness over the school deficit. And I just wanted to give you a little update on where we are with their recommendations. So on page 3 of that report, the auditors listed out probably 10 recommendations here. And the school department's been chipping away, trying to get some of these things in place. One of the biggest things, of course, is the monthly financial statements. And we've had financial statements most of the months since about, I don't know, November, maybe December. It gives us the year, spend so far, and also a projections, a forecast for the rest of the year, so that we can see where they think the numbers are going to end at the end of the year, as well as where we are according to the budget itself. So we do this every month at school committee meetings, and if you ever watch them, you'll see us discussing the financial statements every month. We also get a monthly revolving fund balance, so we can see what the revolving fund balances are each month. And these 2 things together are one of the major controls that the audit firm recommended, so that the school committee can monitor the financial results. The other big thing they recommended, and that the school department is working on, is implementing the electronic purchase order system. It's taking longer than I thought it was going to take, or probably anyone thought it was going to take to get it implemented. They've done 3 departments so far. I think they were doing the 5 schools. They were going to meet, all 6 schools, right? They were going to do 1 class for all the principals and support staff sometime this week or next week, sometime soon, right, John? I don't know the exact date.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of progress lately in getting things moving along there.
Yeah. So this purchase order system, electronic, hopefully will be in place for the school year, which really starts now because they're already buying for this upcoming school year. So that really needs to get implemented. They started with athletics, special ed, and what is the other third department?
I think the business department.
Business
was the
department
third one,
itself.
yeah.
So it started small, and it hasn't gotten out to the schools yet. So hopefully, this summer, all the instruction will happen, and people will start using the electronic purchase order system. We did work on new financial policies and procedures last fall with the school department, and those, at least the purchasing ones, were written. I know the school department is now going to be looking at all their other policies and procedures and trying to update and correct or, delete any policies that don't make sense, because I don't think that's been addressed for a while. The budgetary line item transfer process is also, they recommended that any line item adjustments be approved by the business manager, superintendent, and school committee. Because up until now, the line item integrity of the budget was never maintained. That's one of the another major finding they found, so that when they wanted to shift money from, history department to Fox Hill School, they could just do that. And it was never discussed or brought forward to the school committee. So that also is another one that they recommended. That, most of the big ones. Later in the regular recommended new findings is that they also want a whole write-up of their internal controls, and we'll get that in the next section. So another thing on schools, which has nothing to do with this management letter that I probably should tell you about, is last night's school committee meeting. They did have an issue with the bus contract. They had to go out and rebid it. And the new bid that they accepted last night is from a new company, a different company, and it's about $200,000 less per year than the one that we originally appropriated at town meeting. So the numbers aren't worked out yet. I mean, there's going to have to be some sort of, and I don't know how it works exactly, how the budget will get adjusted to reflect the less expensive bus contract that we now have. But there is some other expenses in there that, it's not a straight one contract to another reduction, because we're gonna pay for a performance bond, which is $24,000, I think, was
Yeah.
around. That's an estimate. And there's summer busing going on right now, and there might be some expenses with that, because we didn't have a contract in place when summer school started Monday. So they've done some, through the lab, I think, some transportation that might have to be factored in. Anything else on that, John? John's our bus guy here. He's our bus expert.
Just to amplify that a little bit, the school committee did informally commit to effectively reducing their budget by the amount of the savings. So their intention is to return that money to the town that was saved. As you may recall, in town meeting, we increased their budget by the anticipated amount of the one bid that there was at the time. And now that the accepted bid is likely to be less, minus no doubt some legal fees involved. The intent is that delta would be returned to the town, and that they wouldn't just transfer and spend it somewhere else.
Do we know what that drops the percentage increase from to?
I believe it was 37% increase with the old one.
No, I mean the overall school budget. So
Oh,
it went
oh,
up
oh.
like 4 point. I'm
Let's
just
let them
curious.
figure out all the numbers, and then we can figure out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be a lot. It's $200,000 out of a $50 million budget, so
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
it will be a small decrease percentage-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so I just want to let you know about that too, because that does impact us financially as well. I'm not exactly sure how that works technically, but that'll get figured out when the time comes, I guess. Let's see. So the other thing I want to point out is that the material weakness, the auditors will be following up on these procedures over the years to make sure that all of these processes are put into place. They do, as you will see when we go to prior year comments from, you will see that many of them are carried from year to year, and they stay on the management letter until the auditors are satisfied that all of the action plan has been completed. So expect to see that for a while. As you know, material weaknesses are not very common. It's very unusual to have a material weakness in your financial statements, or in your management letter. So this will be a focus for a while. The other thing, the auditors were supposed to do a revolving fund audit. I have done a revolving fund audit, and they was looking at mid-year. In January, they looked at their basic procedures that they put in place to help mitigate some of the, or prevent any kind of overspend again. And neither of those reports have been released yet, so we don't have that information. And I know, of course, the revolving funds has been a huge issue with the schools for a couple of years now, too. So I'm hoping the fieldwork's been completed. It's under manager review is the last that we heard on the update. So I'm hoping that information is provided pretty soon, because we're almost ready for next year's audit. Yes.
Very small question, but the management letter, should that be dated 2019?
No,
June 30th, 2018?
because it's the year end of June, oh, what year are we? Yeah, it was
Isn't
June
it?
30, 18, it was the June 30, 18 financial statements, and it was the June 30, 18 budget that got overspent.
So it's taken a year to do the audit and the review and put it together. So it applies to the year financial year that ended last.
So this is fiscal
We appropriated the money
2019.
in 18, but it's fiscal 19.
Oh,
Yes,
It's fiscal 19's money. All of these things happened during,
Fiscal 19 would end in June 2019, you would
Right.
think.
right, so that's why I would,
right.
the letter would be
The
June
cover,
30th.
the cover letter stated,
I haven't read it yet.
the cover letter stated December 21st, 2018.
18,
So-
right.
Okay.
So the opinion of the financial
So
statements.
if this is fiscal 18, then ending June
Right.
30th, 2018 seems right.
Right, because it took about 6 months after the year
Yes, but it
end
was-
to actually
but-
get this done.
But it's,
But the number on the fiscal year is on the end of the fiscal, the calendar year that is the end of the fiscal year.
right.
Yeah, it's a fiscal year 18 overspend.
Anyway, we should check and make sure it's actually labeled correctly, and we can explain why it's labeled that way.
Oh, well, what's this?
What fiscal year are we in right now?
2020.
2020.
We're in
So
20.
this has got to be fiscal 19.
Right.
No.
no, this audit was of 18.
But money that was appropriated in 18.
This is, I mean, they didn't finish it.
This is over a year in the making is what,
Right,
it took more than a year from the fiscal close to get this report out, is that?
yes,
Well, they dated it 6 months after the fiscal close,
right.
and then we got it probably in February or March.
Okay, this came out in
It comes
February.
that
Okay.
quickly,
But the management letter seems like it should be dated.
yeah.
Should we go in a calendar year? Is there any reason why not?
It's so confusing,
Too easy,
isn't it?
Phil.
I think with the school cycle, I think that would be even more
Yeah.
chaotic to
Right.
use a calendar year, but careful what you ask for.
All towns go on the same.
The previous report says explicitly for the year ended June 30th, 2017. So I think for the year ended, clarified dates, but consistent.
Perfect.
Year to year.
It
Yeah.
does say the fiscal year ending June
Right.
2018.
All right,
All right, moving forward, the prior year comments, I just want to point out that the police detail account has been on this letter, management letter, for at least 5 or 6 years now. But I think finally things are under control, and the management response, they believe they've got everything in place that they need to, and I don't think this is going to show up again. But it's been on the management letter, I think, since I've been on the audit committee, since maybe 2012. So that's how long these comments can hang out, so don't be surprised if the school one's there for 5 or 6 more years as well, maybe longer. Because not only do they wait for you to make the changes, but they wait another year to make sure the changes really stuck. So that's why it seems like it sits for a long, long time. So you can read through the prior year comments on some of these other ones. The other one that affected the school committee is and the schools was on page 7, and they want a documentation of the internal controls with this COSO, C-O-S-O, which is a OMB format for documenting internal controls. And so that, I don't think has been started yet. The school department's been much more focused on trying to get some of these other things put together. But that one, I'm sure will sit for a while because that's a big project to get those internal controls documented. But it will also be helpful, I think, because if you document your internal controls, you might figure out where you might have weaknesses that no one else has identified. The school revolving funds, as you know, and the student activities funds are still, this is on for 3 or 4 years now. They're still checking to make sure that all of the new procedures have been in place. The cash has been removed. They're using the cash account. They're turning in the cash box at the end of the performances and all those kinds of things. This year, we have some new comments. Only 3, which isn't too bad. And one of them is something that's probably also going to take a long time. On page 12, they're talking about our cybersecurity, and they're recommending that we look at our cybersecurity, make sure and assess it and come up with a plan to help protect us. They also were recommending considering some cyber reliability insurance. And nowadays, with all the hacking that's been going on and all that, we do need to look at our cybersecurity townwide. And I do believe the ISAC committee is, or some version of it, has been talking about to get reformed. And I think this is probably one of the things that they would really focus on. I'm not sure where they are with that, but I believe I heard a town meeting.
I believe at Maytown meeting, there was a warrant article
talking
to
about it, yeah.
constitute a cybersecurity committee.
Yeah.
And it's up to the selectmen, I think, to appoint
Right,
people.
so
They were
that'll be
asking for
They appointed
volunteers.
it. They appointed it.
Have they?
Loads,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, so that'll be the beginning. We need the committee first, and then we do definitely need to look at the cybersecurity. And the other 2 are related to the Treasury Department. One is about tailings. This is a very common comment you see on management letters, just so you know, about outstanding checks that people didn't cash, and after a certain amount of time, you need to turn those back over to the general fund. And so they had accumulated $17,000 of old checks that they needed to bring over, and they did do that. And then cash reconciliation, I think they finally had to hire someone to help with this, not reconciling the cash between the QuickBooks and the Munis. I guess they switched modules from QuickBooks to Munis. And in the transition, some cash reconciliations fell by the wayside. So they need to get back to doing monthly variance analysis of their cash, which is a pretty basic procedure. And I'm assuming that won't take too much to get back on track and get this off the management letter. So this was a little bit more lengthy management letter than I've had in a while. And of course, the biggest thing was the school deficit spending, because that material weakness is much more significant than your basic management letter. So we'll be monitoring their progress through school subcommittee, of course, and through audit committee, just to make sure that all these things do get worked on. It takes a long time because a lot of this is extra work on top of your routine day-to-day stuff. It's not easy. But hopefully, the monthly financial statements will continue on a regular basis without any more gaps, and we'll get that electronic purchase order system up and running and through the entire school department.
Great. Doug?
Is the electronic purchase order system not up and running yet, or is it?
It's only been implemented in 3 departments so far. So the next step, I think, was to get all 6 schools up and running at the same time. I believe they were going to hold some sort of class or educational session for the principals and their backups, vice principals or whoever does if the principal's not there, who can assign. I think sometime like right now, this week.
Seems like.
So that all those schools will get up and running. I don't, it's a learning curve, and I know when they implemented it in the 3 departments that they did last fall, you know, the staff needed support. They needed someone to answer questions. It's a lot to absorb at one time, and they're not used to it.
Mhm.
So it takes time. I know Whitney was very helpful in getting those 3 departments up and working with those department heads to really learn the system, because it can be confusing.
Sure.
So, I don't know, 6 schools at once could be challenging. I don't know if they're gonna,
Had the school department filled that financial analyst position that they had open?
yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she started in mid-February, I wanna say, or end of February.
Okay.
So she's been on board for a couple of months now. So
Great.
that's why we're hoping, you know, things settle down a little bit more with a little bit more help.
But the,
Bill?
but the manual management control is in place according to the letter that they can't issue any purchase order without approval from the
Yes.
BO and the, okay.
Yes, so the manual system basically worked this year, but the electronic is certainly much more efficient.
Great.
And is there, are the monthly reports happening fairly monthly?
There was a gap during budget season. We got back on track right for the April financial statements we got before we made town meeting. So I believe it was February and March, we did not get financial statements, but we had them in December, for
And
December.
that we finish the year,
So we should be getting them anytime
Yeah.
now for June, right, because this is July, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should be getting them very soon for June. And then,
then we'll know.
so
And the-
about a week after the end of the month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sue, are those reports reconciling to the individual line items? Or are they just reconciling to the overall budget?
We get, by the budget, the department numbers, you know, not the real detail, but the pretty 3-page, I don't know, what do you call that?
Yeah,
Sub-
it's
sub-category.
probably about, I would guess, 60 line items. So it has reasonable granularity, and it's both the budgeted amount, the expended to date, and the projection to the end of the year. So we can see if something's going off the rails and, you know, or if it's going the right direction. And as of the last one, it looked like the projections were that there would be slight surpluses overall. So we, in theory, should be okay unless, of course, there's, you know, big surprises at the end. That's not anticipated, but surprises never are, of course.
But we're only,
They wouldn't be surprises.
we're only 10 days into this fiscal year, so. Thank you very much, Susan. All right,
Great job, Sue.
much appreciated. I had put an item on the agenda for approval of minutes, but I don't have anything to approve. I did start to tabulate our meeting dates and our minutes, as did the clerk's office, and they have pointed out a number of gaps. So I will be scrabbling around trying to figure out minutes that we didn't get written down and filed with the clerk. That
That
includes
appear in
both-
the management letter, next year's management letter?
Maybe, but probably not. It's not directly a financial issue. It is a transparency and an open meeting law issue. And it falls to the chair to make sure that these things get corrected. And since some set of the minutes that are missing are maybe subcommittee meetings, because as we know, subcommittees also are supposed to produce minutes and get them filed with the clerk. So-
Motion to rescind that nomination?
So, you know, I will try to remember to remind people and check them off. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Is there anything else that anybody wants to raise? All right, thank you very much for coming in the middle of your summer. I have a little bit of an inconvenient time to do this in July, but at least it wasn't last Wednesday, so. John?
Do we have an anticipated next meeting?
Not a date. We usually meet about 2 or 3 weeks before the September town meeting.
Okay.
So
So
it-
August sometime? Or early September?
Early September, more likely than August.
Okay.
And I have no idea what will be on the agenda, other than whatever's on the warrant for town meeting.
I'm sure something will come up.
Oh, plus the minutes.
We'll talk about minutes.
Lots of minutes.
Yes. Anyway, any other motions? Phil's got one usually, don't you?
To adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.